Welcome back to Teaching Smarter, Not Harder by activating students' own social, emotional, and cognitive skills development. This lesson is part 2 about soaring questions. As mentioned in part 1, we explained the essential importance of asking groups of kids questions that matter in order to exercise and activate their own potential for collaboratively and creatively solving problems and resolving challenges. The questions we use soar because they are questions that matter. In other words, they are questions that draw out kids' own intelligence, kids' own insights, their own perspectives, and their own creative problem solving abilities. The letters in SOAR are an acronym which stand for stretching, open ended, age appropriately challenging, relevant, and respectful. In part 1 of this series, we explained stretching questions, what they are, how to design them, and their value for your students' brain development and engaged learning. This lesson, part 2, will focus on the O in the SOAR acronym, which stands for open-ended questions, their structure, and their critical importance for students' engaged learning. To support you in the design and implement of open-ended questions, we'll be examining 3 main points. Open-ended questions always have more than one right answer, unlike closed-ended questions. They enliven fresh thinking about everyday situations and expanded thinking about everyday situations. And they spark engagement and discussion and carryover benefits, unlike posters. So let's take those points one by one now. One of the great advantages of open-ended questions is that there is always more than one right answer. That alone is essential for nurturing the natural-born spark of creativity within young children. Another profound advantage of engaging groups of children with open-ended questions is their combined discoveries of how much they have in common with classmates, like feelings and values. Even though they're all very, very different in lots and lots of ways, they get to discover by listening to each other's answers that deep down they all know what it feels like to get hurt feelings. They all understand the importance of playing fair. They all want to do the right thing and have healthy relationships. They all can figure out what's safe and what isn't, and so much more practical skills. Discovering similarities decreases isolation and has been shown to strongly increase the likelihood that students will problem solve together more often, and they'll more often use their upstairs brains, as Dr. Dan Siegel refers to young children's developing prefrontal cortex, in order to achieve answers and solutions that work for everyone, also known as win-win, which is an essential attitude and mindset for uh, the long-term well-being of all people, of animal friends, really of our whole wide world and the environment. Unfortunately, too often we see the use of close-ended questions, which don't really lead anywhere, kind of like this. So if we all want real learning to happen in our classrooms, then expanding our skills as teachers at creating more open-ended opportunities for students to think about and resolve their own challenges is an essential direction for our professional development. Okay, so now get ready to pause the next slide where you will see open-ended and closed-ended questions. Read each of them, compare them, and if you can, think back to when you were a young student. How much would the close-ended questions have enticed you? How much would they have engaged your curiosity and your problem-solving abilities? How would you have felt if your teachers had asked you and your classmates more open-ended questions? So hit the pause button for as long as you need to compare and contrast these open-ended and closed-ended questions. When you're ready, just resume this lesson. So, how does all of this strike you so far? Some taking this course might be thinking, are the instructors crazy? They want me to not tell a class full of preschoolers what to do and how to behave? I mean, what could possibly go wrong besides everything? Well, if those kinds of thoughts are running through your mind, you are not alone. But this is where brain science comes to the rescue. And a little further into this course, we'll be explaining many more details. But for now, research is very clear about the fact that the more we lecture to students, the less likely, the less they actually learn. And open-ended questions are one important key to activating students' successful engagement, because the more we because well-crafted open-ended questions spark, enliven, and expand fresh thinking about everyday situations. In other words, well-crafted open-ended questions clear the way for looking, thinking, and feeling with new points of reference, with new perspectives, with less cloudy and more precise attention. We could even say more mindfully. Pretty much everyone agrees that lectures, by their one-sided nature, do not have the capacity to enliven engaged responses. We have another important point about creating open-ended questions. Sometimes there's just no way around asking questions that invariably elicit one-word responses. So whenever that happens, the most helpful response from a teacher is to ask who, what, where, when, why, and how questions, because ultimately the intention of this approach is to spark engagement, discussion, and carryover behaviors. For carrying over to the playground, and carrying over to lunchtime, and carrying over into cleanup time, something that motivational posters and reward charts are not capable of helping you to achieve so smoothly and with such genuine student ownership. Which, of course, is a number one school readiness skill, and because well-managed classrooms are a joy for teachers and for students. Creative educators understand that only when students regularly exercise their own collaborative problem-solving skills are they willing and prepared to resolve their own challenges, whether those challenges are predictable or unpredictable. So, open-ended questions are a big key to your well-managed classroom success, enabling you to teach smarter, not harder, by activating students' own social, emotional, and cognitive skills development. In our next lesson, we'll prepare you to design age-appropriately challenging questions for your students. Thanks.